name is Lou, and these are my books. Today is very exciting for me because, we just hit 100 subscribers. Well, technically it says 105, but like, at the time of this recording, 105 is when I found out that I hit 100 subscribers. And honestly, hey, why are you growling at me? Anyways, Puppy, come here. Are you happy for me too? I think she's happy for me. But anyways, could you please, this is a new sweater. Please stop kicking and flailing around. This is a brand new sweater. Anyways, so I'm honestly just ecstatic and honestly in awe that I've hit this milestone. Like, I know it's not a lot technically, but it's a lot to me because I've had this channel for a while and I've only recently started being like very, very consistent with it. And honestly, this is such an encouragement to keep going and whatnot. Ever since I posted my ranting about Fourth Wing video, everything just went like straight up. And honestly, I'm just so grateful and so incredibly appreciative of everybody who is, of everybody who's been watching my videos and supporting my content and like subscribing to my channel. I love each and every one of you, and and I am so appreciative that all of you have decided that I am worthy of your subscription. So thank you so much. But also, hold on, I'm putting my dog down. This is a new sweater. It is also Friday the 13th of October, so I decided I'm gonna wrap this into 2-1 because I was already planning on doing this video, but I'm going to make it 100 subscribers special. We're gonna be reading Dracula for the month of October because it's spoopy season, and I decided that we're going to be reading a spoopy book. Also, there's an audiobook for on Audible, and it is full cast, so we're doing that. But also, not just that, we're also going to be annotating it. And honestly, there aren't any red tabs that I have anyways. However, these were the closest ones I could find to match like the vibe of the book. So that's where we're at. I am really super excited because I've had this on my shelf for a while. And honestly, I've heard some really amazing things about Dracula. It's a classic horror book, right? But something about this book is that a lot of people say that it has something that not a lot of books do very well anymore, and that is suspense. And I'm honestly really excited because if this is going to be my baseline for horror, I need it to be good. I'm the weird kind of person who likes to have baselines for the books I read. According to a lot of people, this book is a great baseline for classic horror and just horror in general, because it just does horror very well. It gives the thought of the unknown. It's just done really well. And honestly, I actually watched the little like Dracula miniseries thing that they had on Netflix for a while, and that was amazing. Just saying. So yeah, we're gonna start this book. Also, this doesn't match the spoopy vibes. However, I don't really care because it feels very Victorian and, you know, old-timey. So we're keeping it there. But anyways, guys, let's set up and get to reading. I'm also reading The Color Purple, but like we're prioritizing this. The audiobook is 19 hours, and if I listen to it on 1.5 speed, I should be able to get through it in like 2 or 3 days, depending. So let's see. I'm super excited for this, actually. I really am. I'm gonna vlog my entire experience for it too. I will stop at places and I will tell you my thoughts, and then at the end of this video I'll do like a very full comprehensive review. But for now, Dracula. So I've officially finished chapter 1, and I've started the annotations, if you can see the little tabs in there. I have 3 color tabs in so far. One is for foreshadowing, the second is for creepy vibes, and then the third is for the suspicious. 'Cause, like, okay, so within this book, I'm just going to say this. This book starts off pretty lighthearted, and then it quickly descends into horror movie kind of like, it's just like the vibes are just all sorts of off, really, because things just kind of slowly start making no sense in the horror movie way, in where things start off like pretty typically. This guy, so if you don't know what's happening for this first chapter, Jonathan Harker spends his first chapter traveling to Castle Dracula at the behest of Count Dracula himself. And within this whole thing, his whole journey, he knows nothing about the legends and whatnot. He's in Romania right now. He's traveling to Transylvania to Castle Dracula. And what's happening is that the locals found out about his journey and are literally like crossing him, giving him blessings and stuff like that to try and like, you know, have him be safe and whatnot. They're trying to bless him to be safe. But they're not telling him why. And he doesn't even understand the ritual until someone actually explains it to him. And then they're also telling him about, like, this is not a good day to be traveling there. You really shouldn't be doing that. But, like, again, they're not telling him why. And he's just sitting there like, why? And he's obviously very uneasy about the whole thing, but he's just kind of going along with it because he doesn't see a reason not to go along with it. Which, fair, but also I'm in here thinking that's some white people shit, because it's like, there is no black person I know who would literally just go in, who would literally have all this kind of shit stacked up against them and still go to Castle Dracula when people are literally making the signs of the cross at him. Like, I wouldn't, so I don't know why he's doing it. But you know what? We haven't exactly found out what his business is either yet, so we're going to have to see. But honestly, the writing's really nice, and I think the whole what is it? The whole point and what's going on within this is actually really nice. What's going on is really nice. The writing's really nice as well, and the audiobook is very much helping to speed this along, so that's really nice. My goal is to get by tomorrow at the very least to get to chapter 10. Which is on page 124. So that's a bit of a ways to go, but it's about a third of the way through the book. So we're just gonna have to go. So I'm just going to go for it. But I know the basic gist of the story of Dracula, but I've never actually read it, so I'm really excited for this. And also the tabs are starting to grow on the side, which is always so satisfying. All right. I will see you when I have reached chapter 10. Hey, hi, hello. So I've reached chapter 10 of Dracula, and let me just say, so the tabs are growing on the tabs are growing on the side. And let me just say, it's honestly really easy to stay sucked in with the story because things move at a pretty, not really frenetic pace. However, being able to see this from the perspective of letters and diary entries and even like logs and like some sort of like news clippings too, like it really just breaks up the story in some very interesting ways and is a very nice way of keeping you invested, because it's not all just like boring prose. It's prose given to you in different flavors and things like that. So, spoilers, obviously, but essentially what's happening is, we went through, Jonathan Harker's, like, diary entries for the first, like, maybe 5 chapters, and it was essentially just him, like, flitting about in Castle Dracula, and him realizing that he has essentially become a prisoner of Count Dracula, and him like very slowly coming to the realization that he is in the presence of an actual fucking monster. Not one that's just like of the garden variety, you know, like something actually horrible and unspeakable. And then we move on to the perspective of his fiance and her best friend, his fiance Mina and her best friend Lucy, and strange things start happening with them too. And in between there's this little thing with the log of the Demeter, where some very horrible things happen to it, and Mina just kind of puts it in her diary, which I think is hilarious. But horrible things happen, but no one's really thinking much of it, which I think is also like a kind of a bad idea. But as things progress, Lucy specifically starts having some really weird things happening to her, and she's like sleepwalking and doing all these weird things, and she just can't sleep, and she's having weird nightmares. And one night actually, she walks out of the house to a gravestone and is sitting there with some figure standing over her. And like Mina is obviously very shocked by this. She's like, "Excuse me, what?" "No, Lucy," trying to wake her up, but Lucy doesn't wake up until like very, very like maybe 20 minutes later. And then the figure disappears, and then Lucy has these 2 pinprick marks on her neck. You can already see where this is going. However, she progressively is going through a cycle of like getting better and then getting sicker. And no one really knows what to make of it. So we've brought in a doctor who is the best friend of her fiance, who has also proposed to her before her fiance proposed to her, as well as Van Helsing. Abraham Van Helsing. And honestly, Van Helsing is the most eccentric little man I've ever seen, and I love him actually. Like when he's introduced, we get a letter from him, and it's listing all, because he's a doctor, so he's listing all of his like acronyms and whatnot, but at one point he just gets bored with it and just goes etc etc. So I think that's really funny. But yeah, we're currently on chapter 10, and I am honestly really enjoying the story. It's so easy to stay sucked in, especially with the audiobook. I highly recommend the audiobook because it's a full cast and everything. And honestly, there was this one part where Mina's talking with like some Scottish people, and they have some really thick accents, and her voice actor imitating them and speaking like them was honestly like so funny to me. It was hilarious. But either way, I am really enjoying this book, and I will get to chapter 20, and then you know what? I think what's going to happen is that I'm going to finish this book, and then we're going to talk about it entirely. Because after this, I only have about 17 chapters left, because there are 27 chapters, and honestly, I'm listening to this on 1.5 speed. And it cuts down the audiobook from 15 hours to about 9. So I'm about, I think about maybe at least another 2. I've at least cut down another 2, so I'm about 6 hours away from the end, considering the audiobook. So I'll either definitely finish this tomorrow, or I'll definitely finish it tomorrow, like Sunday, and then I'll do all the things, and then I'll upload this video. Maybe, depending. I don't really know. This may go up after, like in my most recent video, this may go up after the video I posted where it's me talking about my end of year TBR, or this could go up the day before Halloween. I'm thinking this is maybe going to go up the day before Halloween because it's going to seem a little bit more appropriate. But yeah, this is the 100 subscriber special, and also my subscriber count has been rising since I started this book. So I'm going to put in the current count here. I'm not going to say I know exactly what the current count is because I haven't checked yet. But here's the current count. Either way, I don't care what this current count is, but thank you, all of you, for subscribing to my channel and supporting me throughout this entire journey. Anyways, I'm going to go to bed, and we'll either finish this tomorrow or finish it Sunday and we'll finish it Saturday and then we'll deal with it. Okay, bye. We have finished the Spoopy book. I know I'm in literally the same sweater from the beginning of this video, but I promise it's a different day. It is actually October, what is it? 25th, actually. So 5 days before this is getting uploaded. So we have finished Dracula. I did it through the audiobook, as I said, and I highly recommend it, actually, because the voice actors are really nice. And also, like, it's from, like, also, it's full cast, also. And, like, just in general, it's just a really good one. I listened to it on 1.5 speed, which brought down the 15 hours of the audiobook down to about 10, which was actually really good. And and I understood pretty much everything. I did annotate it, as you can see, but I didn't, like, okay, so here's how this annotation went for me. I started annotating a lot, but as I kept going, things just, like, there was less and less to really annotate because more of the action was ramping up. You know what I mean? So I didn't feel the need to annotate near the end of the book, and honestly, I'm okay with it. I really am. I'm okay with this. There are also some things in here that also don't have tabs attached to them, because they were not even like spoopy themed. Really, they were just things I found, like, really funny. So yeah, I did annotate it. It was actually a really nice experience reading this book, just in general. It's a really good book. That's all I'm gonna say. Bram Stoker is a quintessential horror writer for a reason. And this book has something interesting about it. It's just, like, sometimes you can just kind of get lost within this book. You can really get lost within the world it's building. You can really get lost within the characters and their speaking and all of that. But then there are things in there that really make you go, what the fuck? Like, I remember I was listening to this while I was doing some skincare, and, like, there was this one point in the book where, so I'm getting ahead of myself, really. But there are points in this book that make you really remember that this is a horror novel. Because sometimes you can kind of forget that because, like, things feel so mundane and, like, everything's going to be fine. But no, there are things in here that really just make you go, oh, that's creepy. And I think that's what a good horror novel really is about, you know? So let's start from the beginning. We start from the perspective of one Jonathan Harker, who is managing a little bit of a title transfer / buying of a house for Mr. Count Dracula of Transylvania. He's organizing this and bringing all the paperwork to Transylvania to Castle Dracula, you know? All of that. And along the way, during his travels, he's kind of thinking, oh, it's kind of weird. I'm telling the locals where I'm going, and the locals are, like, fearing for my life, you know? But he doesn't really think much of it until he actually, like, is in Dracula's carriage. He doesn't start really thinking about anything that's really creepy until creepy things start happening on his way directly to the castle through the Count's carriage driver, you know? Because there are lots of sounds and wolves and things like that, and he sees things that he doesn't really understand. So he's just kind of like, what the hell? But again, he's not really thinking much of it because, you know, he's a practical Englishman. Very practical little Englishman. So his first interaction with Count Dracula is actually quite, kind of cute a little bit. Dracula, he just thinks Dracula's like this little ugly old man, who wants to move to London. So they talk business, but Jonathan starts picking out some really weird things. He never eats. Jonathan is the only one who eats in this castle. Dracula never does, even though he joins him for every meal. And he starts noticing things about Dracula's physical appearance. He thought he was just ugly for the moment, but then he notices the little sharp teeth that he has. There's that. And then And then there's this part that really hits home for him, that Dracula might be something strange. When Dracula appears behind him while he's shaving, he nicks himself, and Dracula appears behind him and goes, "Be careful, my friend." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were there," because he was shaving in a mirror. And then he looks back in the mirror, can't see Dracula. He's clearly behind him. He can feel him behind him. But Dracula is not in the mirror. He's not being reflected. So this is where he starts thinking, oh, shit. Things are getting creepy, right? And then from there, Dracula starts, like, ramping up his little, like, creepy things and whatnot. And Jonathan starts going, okay, maybe I should look more into my surroundings, which I thought was kind of a bad choice. But also, he learns a lot in this process, in that there are 3 sexy vampire ladies who live in this castle along with Dracula. They try to eat him, but Dracula's like, hey, he's mine, leave him be. And they're like, aw, well, why won't you give us something to eat? So he gives them a child to eat. And they do eat the child. And Jonathan faints from the shock of it, which I think is hilarious. And then Jonathan starts to think himself a prisoner, because Dracula is having him write letters in advance that Dracula himself will post. Right? And Jonathan thinks this is a little weird. And then he goes looking for his and then he goes like looking around in his room, because he notices some things are missing, and he finds the suit he traveled in is gone. And then there's some really strange things that also happen, but when he sees his suit again, he's looking out the window and he sees Dracula climb out of a window and go down the wall in what he calls a lizard-esque manner in his travel suit. And he immediately goes, ah. And honestly, I would have been like, what the fuck? Right? And it's in the room directly beneath his. So he's obviously like very creeped out. I would be too. So Jonathan's just kind of like, okay, I'm a prisoner to this man. Okay. And the story is told in a series of like diary entries, newspaper clippings, memorandums, you know, things like that. And there's also the log of the Demeter in here as well. But here's something interesting about what happens with Jonathan. We actually don't really know what happens to him. Like, because after chapter 10 is when his perspective stops for like a full 5 or 6 chapters. And we switch to the perspective of Mina Harker, who is his fiance, and Lucy Westenra, who is Mina's best friend / soul sister, who is like quintessential Victorian lady. She's literally kind of like Mary Sue. Like, Lucy's adorable. I love Lucy. I really do. But like, she's like, she doesn't really have enough personality, and that makes a lot of sense considering how long she lives. But like, either way, something that's really interesting about this is that we don't know what happens with Jonathan after his last diary entry, post chapter 10, right? And that's what's funny. And so we get like we get some creepy things happening back home. We don't know what happens with Jonathan or Dracula at this point. We really don't. But we get some weird tips about Dracula. What happens with him is that it's like so I'm just gonna go in chronological order. So Mina is a school assistant principal kind of thing for a school for girls. And she's coming back home to live with her best friend, Lucy Westenra, and her mother. And Lucy's mom is very, very sick. She's like, she has like weeks to live, blah, blah, blah. She's very sick and Lucy's very worried about her. But Lucy starts regaling her with tales of how she's proposed to by 3 subsequent men. And it's the 3rd guy that she accepts. But like, he's like the most plain as Jane kind of thing. The only thing he really has going for him is that he's a lord. Really? So she chooses him, they're engaged, blah, blah, blah. And then most of this book is from the perspective of John Seward, who is a doctor who is specifically a psychiatric doctor. He deals with what he calls lunatics. And it's really funny because he has this lunatic that's literally in his house. He has a house, and quite literally, he's just keeping this random crazy guy in his house. And I thought that was hilarious, actually. He's just keeping him in his, like, home. It's really funny. Little Mr. Renfield. And honestly, the little crazy guy, he's actually really cute. He eats insects and things because he believes that consuming life gives you life, which actually sets a really interesting tone for this book now that I think about it. But either way, Lucy suffers from bouts of sleepwalking, which is strange in and of itself. And Mina knows this, and Mina is like, she's just like, okay, I'll keep this key around my wrist to the door so you can't go around and whatnot, and you can't injure yourself at night, and you know what, and I'll wake up and like put you back in your bed and whatnot. So yeah, Lucy does that. But there's this one time where she sneaks out of the house somehow. And Mina goes looking for Lucy because Lucy's doing all of this weird shit. And she ends up on like the other side of town near a cemetery/churchyard, like sitting on their usual like place to sit because they sit there a lot. So Lucy makes it all the way out there from the house. And Mina's like looking for her. She catches Lucy's blonde hair in the distance. She's like, "Oh, Lucy, so glad I found you." Until she sees this white thin figure standing over her. And she's like, "Lucy, look out!" And Lucy's not awake, but this thin figure is very much awake. And so he goes, "Rah," and then goes away. He like disappears or somehow. I don't remember how he disappears, but he's gone. He's vanished. Vanished. Mina runs up to Lucy and is like trying to shake her awake. She's like, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And like puts a cloak around her, things like that. And gives her shoes, literally. And then after they're like halfway home, that's when Lucy wakes up and she's like, "Oh, Mina, I'm so sorry. Here, take your shoes back." And Mina's like, no, get back in bed. So they get back to bed. And Mina notices something. Mina notices 2 small puncture marks on the side of her neck. She immediately assumes it's from the clasp of her cloak, and she's like, "I'm sorry for injuring you. I'm so sorry." And Lucy's like, "Oh no, it's no big deal. I literally walked out of the house." "I'm sorry for doing that." So yeah, sleepwalking was weird. And then Lucy gets sick. Like, really, really sick. So they call in Jonathan Seward, who also, by the way, was one of the people that proposed to Lucy in that 3-guy thing. He was one of the people who proposed to Lucy. So Mina calls him in. He's like, "Hey, both of these people are really sick, but Lucy in particular is really worrying me because Mrs. Westenra is a really old woman, so I was expecting her to be sick. But Lucy's really young and pretty and things and that, blah, blah, blah. Come check on her, please." And he's like, on it. So he comes in and he thinks, she looks really strange. She's like really sick, but also she has bouts of energy and things like that. So he calls in a consultant, one Abraham Van Helsing. And honestly, that is a name. I always thought Van Helsing would have been like the most bad A type doctor. But no, he's a Danish goofball and I love him so much. Like literally, there's this point in the book where, Jonathan calls him in because he's like, "Hey, I don't know what to make of this." And Van Helsing was his mentor. So, "Hey, I don't know what to make of this. Could you come in and see what's going on, teacher?" And Van Helsing, he sends a telegram and he's literally like, in his name, he's like, "Abraham Van Helsing, MD, blah, blah, blah." All these acronyms. And then at one point he just puts et cetera, because I'm like, too many titles. It's so funny. He's like, I shall be there shortly. He's also struggling a little bit with the English language, which I also thought was really fun. But Van Helsing arrives and he looks at Lucy and he's like, huh, she's quite pale. And then John Steward, he starts examining her in front of Van Helsing, and Van Helsing has bouts of something called serious face. I got that from OSP. But seriously, serious face Van Helsing is like very interesting because like he literally just gets really quiet and really grim and then starts barking orders without explaining anything. And then he's like, go over there. I shall explain later. And then everybody just accepts this. They just, it's really, really funny, but also like, there's nothing really you can say about it. But yeah, Van Helsing is a very funny character. And so they're treating Lucy and whatnot, and Van Helsing discovers she's lost a lot of blood somehow. And so they perform a transfusion. And who better to do the transfusion than her lover, Arthur, or Lord. He's Arthur Holmstead, I think that's his name. He's not very memorable. They just call him Art, so I'm going to call him that. Art. He volunteers very readily to save his darling fiance. So they take his blood. I don't know how they do it. It's never really explained. But they do a transfusion, and Lucy starts to look a lot better, you know? And then a couple days later, she's not doing well again. And Van Helsing gets his serious face again. He's like, oh God, this is not a good thing. This is not good. Not good. Not good at all. So he does transfusion again through Steward this time. He's like, I'm not going to take as much from you because I need you alert. I need you paying attention. And so this is the point where both Van Helsing and Steward began monitoring Lucy during the nights and whatnot. And gradually, Van Helsing is getting more paranoid by the day, the sicker Lucy gets. Because he's noticing, oh, she looks very pale. Her teeth are getting sharper. And then, the peak of his paranoia, the 2 puncture marks, which were originally thought from the cloak, but they haven't healed. And they look about as fresh as they did the day they got there. Mina, throughout this entire process, she's there kind of, but then she gets a letter. She gets a letter from a nunnery in Budapest, from a sister there who says, hey, we have your fiance. You want to come get him? And Mina is like, lightning speed. Gone. Godspeed to you. So she goes over, she goes to take care of Jonathan, and it's really cute. And they get married there too. So now she's officially Mrs. Harker. And whatnot. So then, while Mina is over there taking care of Jonathan, Lucy dies, right? Lucy dies. It's really, really sad. Lucy dies, and for some reason, I thought it was weird, and apparently this is, nobody, everybody else thinks this is weird, but everybody's like, wow, she makes a very beautiful corpse. And it's like, yeah. And I'm just like, why are we talking about how beautiful a dead body she makes? Like that seems a little creepy, you know, just to me. So they do that, and Van Helsing, after she dies, is even more paranoid than when she was alive. So what he does is he puts a bunch of garlic flowers in her coffin. He's been using garlic flowers as like a treatment and whatnot. Puts garlic flowers in there and a little gold crucifix in her coffin, which probably gets stolen by one of the people that works at the mortuary. And Van Helsing is very mad about this because this little crucifix was stolen. And suddenly around town, little children start playing with someone called the Bloofer Lady, who no one knows who she is. However, these children return with little puncture marks on their neck. Just two baby ones. And with significant amounts of blood lost. And so local doctors are stumped. They're like, what the fuck? Maybe this is a wolf? Doesn't look like a wolf bite, but maybe, possibly. So, Van Helsing is obviously like, creepy. He's like paranoid as fuck, right? And so John Stewart is like, he's still mourning the death of his crush. And Van Helsing goes, hey, so I gotta tell you something, but you're not gonna like it. And Stewart is like, don't worry, I can take it. He's like, you know, Lucy rose from the dead, and now she's feasting off local children. And Stewart is like, I can't take it. He immediately goes, are you mad, man? Lucy's too sweet of a girl to be doing that. And Van Helsing's like, don't worry, I love her too, but do you understand that she's dead now? Yeah. So they go to the churchyard, they unlock the mausoleum where she and her mother are buried. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Westenra died. And they open Lucy's coffin, and they go in the night. They open Lucy's coffin. No Lucy. No Lucy in the coffin, right? And so Stewart is like, oh, maybe somebody body snatched her, because she did make a very beautiful corpse. And Van Helsing's like, I mean, true, but I was hoping this was going to be all the proof you needed. So I shall get more proof. And then, so they come back the next day in the middle of the day. Not the middle of the day, but like morning, right? And they go to the mausoleum. They open Lucy's coffin again. There is Lucy. However, she doesn't look dead. She looks very much alive, just very asleep. But like everybody was like, yeah, but we saw her die like not even 5 days ago. So how is this possible? He's like, and Van Helsing's like, do you need more proof? No, seriously. Van Helsing's like, do you need more proof? And Stewart is like, I can't explain this. He tries to find rational explanation, but he can't. So here's what so after a while, someone, the Boy Squad gets involved. Boy Squad meaning, John Quincy. No, we just call him Quincy. And then, her fiance Art, they get involved. And Art is immediately like, he's like, so sad that his beloved Lucy died. And then Van Helsing's like, yeah, I got more bad news for you, bro, but you're gonna need to come with me. Everybody's very outraged at the accusation that Lucy could have possibly risen from the dead as now feeding off of local children. But those are very quickly put to bed when they find Lucy feeding off a local child in the churchyard, and everybody's like, right. So there's that. And so Art is like, what do I do? That's my beautiful Lucy. Right, he's crying, and everybody's very distressed that Lucy turned into a vampire, and that the gates of heaven have been closed off to her, and blah blah blah. So Van Helsing's like, yeah, we got to do a lot of things. This is gonna be gruesome, but it needs to happen, or else more children are gonna start dying. And so everybody's like, we shall put our grief aside for beautiful Lucy and save the children, reluctantly, because what you have to do is you have to stake her through the heart and cut off her head. Right, and so, and Art, her fiance, volunteers to do this, which I was very shocked about. So he quite literally stabs her in the heart, and she screams and shrieks, and then falls actually dead. You know, she falls actually dead. And then Van Helsing stuffs her mouth with garlic flowers, and cuts off her head. And then puts a little gold crucifix in there, and then closes the coffin, and they all leave. And no more children start going missing. So that's nice. But yeah, it's at this point that Mina comes back from Budapest with Jonathan, because, she comes back from Budapest to London with Jonathan. And, oh yeah, also, I didn't say this, but the log of the Demeter was also very interesting, because it's literally told in these little series of like small little paragraphs from like this little, like, I think it's like an Austrian man, someone, from the log of the Demeter, because the Demeter is a ship that lands on the London port, and literally all of its crew is dead. All of its crew is gone except for the captain, who is dead, tied to the wheel of the ship with the log in his pocket. And so this log tells a story of how literally everybody starts going missing because of something they're transporting. Can you guess what? Mr. Bat Boy. right? So, I'm not gonna go into it, but honestly, the Log of the Demeter is really fucking creepy. You should read it. You should read it. Even if you don't want to read the actual physical book, you should read the Log of the Demeter, because it slowly starts getting really, really creepy the further you go down. It's just, it's horrifying. I'm just gonna say that. And so, yeah. But now it is from that we know that Dracula has landed in London, other than the fact that Lucy turned into a vampire. So from that, so Mina and Jonathan come back to London. Jonathan has been sick with brain fever, and, he's been very shocked. I couldn't imagine why. But Jonathan was very shocked. He comes back, and he and Mina inherit a very big real estate company from Jonathan's employer, and now they're rich, and he's partner, and blah, blah, blah. He has a really good job now. And so they're married, and it's really cute, until Jonathan sees who he is very certain is the Count. He's referred to as the Count, not Dracula, but the Count. He's referred to as the Count. He sees the Count just out and about. The Count doesn't notice them, but Jonathan surely notices them. Right? Right. And Jonathan immediately goes back to scared little baby boy, something like that. And it's at this point that Mina gets a telegram from Van Helsing, who's like, hey, I'm sorry your friend died, but I need to know something. I read Lucy's little papers and whatnot. I was given permission by her fiance. It's fine. I need to know something about you because you knew about her. I need to see your diary, and I need to meet your fiance, and I need to meet your husband. And Mina is like, not gonna question this at all. So she goes to meet Van Helsing. They have breakfast with Jonathan and everything. And Van Helsing is very interested in Jonathan's experience with Dracula. And, here's the thing. After Lucy dies, there's still a point in this book where Van Helsing doesn't explain anything about the vampires. He doesn't explain anything about Dracula either. He's, trying to preserve the horror of it for these, other people who are, very blissfully in ignorance. But after what happens with Lucy, and after Stewart and Mina put pretty much everything together, Van Helsing's kind of forced to tell them, and so it's just now we just gotta go kill him. So they all get involved, Boy Squad plus Mina, and they exclude Mina because they don't think they can handle what happened to Lucy happening to her, especially since she's just married and all of that. So they stay in John Stewart's house, which ironically enough is right next to the house that Dracula actually bought in London. This is going to come into play later. So they find the record of what the Demeter was carrying. 49 boxes of earth. Seems very inconspicuous. But Van Helsing later explains that the only way a vampire can really survive is by the only way a vampire can sleep is by being laid on top of the earth from their home. So it's a bunch of Transylvanian or dirt, And these can only be put in dark places in holy spots, which is interesting. So they break and enter into that house, right? And they find 29 boxes of earth. And they're like, where are the others? And it's just like, where are the others? We don't know. So they find another 7. And so, this is the first night they're there. They break and enter the house. They find these boxes of earth. And this is the first night that they're excluding Mina. And afterwards, after this little exploration, John Stewart's lunatic starts spouting some nonsense about being sane and wanting to go free. And everybody's immediately very skeptical. It's just who? I don't think so. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think I trust you. And they have good reason not to trust him. But after this whole exchange, something very funny happens. The lunatic, Renfield, he sits down on his bed and is like, I do hope, doctor, that you take into consideration that I tried to warn you. And this is when I was doing my skincare. I literally, I heard this part and I went, So what now? It was so creepy. That part, like, I think it just creeped me out more than the rest of this book. Just, you don't just throw that in there. Oh yeah, also this lunatic, he has a lot of foreshadowing in there as well. But yeah. And then the day after that, Mina starts getting like really faint and really sick. And everybody's like, and like nobody's really batting an eye to this, but and Mina's like trying to be strong. She's like, I'm an upright, upstanding Victorian woman. I cannot be sick and worry my dear husband and our dear friends. I must be strong. Until she really can't be strong anymore, and Jonathan's like girly. He's like, ma'am, what's wrong with you? And then Van Helsing comes to check her out, and he's like, oh God, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad, 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 bad. And like, so they're kind of out of the. He's like, I don't think this is nice, because her sickness isn't as bad as Lucy's was. But what really clues them in to Dracula's presence, into like, you know, draining Mina, is that he kind of force feeds Mina his blood, and everybody breaks into their room to witness it, and then Dracula's like, rah, and then runs away. It's really funny. It's really, that scene in itself, it's creepy, but it's actually really funny, because like Dracula, every time he's caught, he just goes rah and runs away. Like my man dips. It's really funny. So there's that. And this is the point where everybody's like, okay, Mina has to be involved now. There's no way we can just keep her out of this. So they just go. They move, and they start moving, and Dracula panics after this discovery, and quite immediately he starts running back home. My man, he's a runner. He's a track star. He's running. He's essentially going back the way he came, as in cargo on a ship, sleeping in those boxes of earth he bought. The one that they never found, you know? So Van Helsing is like explaining how they can kill him. It's like same way we killed Lucy. And from there, they find out that Van Helsing can hypnotize Mina, and she can figure out where he is. Because, you know, the extant connection. Because what Dracula was trying to do by force-feeding Mina his blood is that he can look through her eyes and ears and see what they're planning and how to thwart it. But they found him, and he can't really do that anymore, you know? So, what happens there? He gets, so they use that to their advantage and use Mina as kind of a locator device. And then the gang splits up. So Mina and Van Helsing, they go to Dracula's castle first, to get rid of the 3 sexy vampire ladies. And then Jonathan and the rest are following Dracula's trail to see whether or not to kill him en route to his castle. So like they do. And like that's kind of it. Like the ending of this book isn't really that very spectacular. It ends with Jonathan writing in his diary that it's been 7 years since the events of what happened, and they have a son. Also, Quincy dies. I don't remember how. It's like literally one line, but Quincy dies. So Jonathan and Mina, they're living very comfortably in London. Mina is like fully healed and whatnot, and they have a son named Quincy after the dead Quincy, and the son was actually born the day Quincy died. So yeah, it's really cute. They have a little idyllic ending, and, you know, happily ever after. But the thing about this book is that, like, it's not, okay, I'm just going to say this, it is a lot longer than I think it needs to be. But that makes sense, because at the time, writers got paid by the word, so lots of going on. But here's something interesting about this book, is that I heard that it had a lot of suspense, but feeling that kind of suspense through words is very different. And the way this is done is actually excellent. Like, I would recommend that anyone read this book, really, because this really does give you an insight into what horror could actually feel like, what good horror is. Sure, it's wordy, sure, it's kind of long-winded, sure, but I think that's what gives it its quintessential charm, because it is told through writing. Because diary entries, it's through diary entries, memorandums, telegrams, newspaper clippings, logs. This is tradition. This is told through literal writing, and it builds the story of Dracula attempting to take over London and then running away in the process. But seriously, this is actually a really good book, and the suspense that's built is just amazing, because sometimes you don't really feel like you're reading the book, and then there's some points in this book where you remember, oh, this is a horror novel, in a really good way. Like, because you can sometimes forget, because things can feel so mundane sometimes. Not really mundane in the boring way, but mundane in the way where it's just like, you just kind of forget, because these characters are talking about their daily lives. They're talking about their lives, they're talking about their feelings. And then there are these scraps of horror that start penetrating these mundane things that you really just need to, like, pay attention to. So, honestly, this book was amazing. I would recommend it to pretty much anyone who's a horror fan or wants to get into horror. I'm using this as a baseline for all of my horror, honestly. Now, just gonna say this. And honestly, reading this during the month of October, reading this during Spoopy month, was a really great experience for me. I see no reason as to why you shouldn't read classics. I see no reason as to why this book is so slept on. It is a great book, and it's a classic for a reason. So yeah, I give this book 5 stars, and I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all would consider reading it as well. But either way, that brings this video to an end, you guys. I had a really great experience reading this book, and again, thank you for the 100 subscribers. I've decided that every 100 subscribers, I'm going to do kind of a video like this, like either a read experience vlog or a readathon in celebration. So for the 100 subscribers, it was reading Dracula for the first time. But anyways, guys, that brings this video to an end. You guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from me, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. I post weekly on this channel, so don't miss out. Also, leave me comments down below of what you want to see from me, what I should put on my TBR, what I should move up my TBR, what you guys think I should read for your entertainment. I always get really excited when I see comments from you guys. It makes me feel so happy and appreciated. Anyways, guys, I love you, my lumas. Bye!